listening to this, I'm wondering if listeners are thinking, well, okay, but some of my dreams are so kind of out there and, don't bear any resemblance to my day-to-day life or my past life. How, like, what am I meant to do with that? And so I'm going to give
Yes.
an example of a recent dream I had, which was I've been having some really intense dreams recently, actually. But certain dreams really stay with you, and it's kind of those images that just keep being present. If this was one of those dreams,
Yeah.
I can share it quite quickly. But it's a good example of a dream that's just like that's never actually happened to me in real life. Where what is this telling me? I mean, I can absolutely have looked at it from a, I guess, archetypal and alchemical perspective, but I'm interested if I didn't have that context,
Yeah.
what you would do with something of this kind, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes.
So, um, in this dream, there was a kind of context to this that I don't recall, but I think it began. I was with someone else who was a man, but I don't know who they were. They were kind of like a man that in the dream was very known to me and close to me, but I couldn't place who they were um in my waking life. And then we were being chased by a wild boar, and then just at the moment where the wild boar was going to get us, I think we were kind of almost like lay on the floor with it kind of above us, and we'd all sort of crashed to a halt, I think. I don't know whether we had kind of managed to, I don't know honestly if we'd managed to kill it or something, but it had kind of like collapsed, sort of clearly not conscious above us, I think. Actually, I'm going to double check my notes because that bit feels important. I can't recall it. That's not the bit that I've focused on, but I have written it down. So let me just see quickly. It will make sense because it segues into the next part, and you'll need to know this. So, yes, okay. So it's as I've just said. So it's a bit of a mystery. We've just escaped being gored by a wild boar. I don't recall how, and he's lying beside us, not dead, but no longer a threat. Then a huge lion shows up. And just as we're thinking, oh my goodness, we've just escaped being like gored by a wild boar. Now there's this huge lion. And then the lion, instead of being concerned with us, goes to mate the boar. And so we're kind of lying right underneath, like both this boar and the lion. So we've got this bird's eye view of the lion about to mate the boar. And then the lion drips urine onto my hand and onto the man who I'm with, onto his forehead. And then we go from like being like terrified and oh my god, what's happening, to like bursting out laughing. Like, of all the things to happen after we just now escaped death, we've now just been weed on by a lion. And it was so funny. I was later in my sleep, I was remembering it and laughing out loud in my sleep because my husband the next morning said, you were laughing in your sleep. And I was like, I remember why that was. So I think a good example of a really out there dream where, I've never been gored by a wild boar or weed on by a massive lion.
Yeah, that's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, we'll look at it. So, yeah, of course, the dreams that people have or they bring to me or that I have are always never look like, or very rarely look like, what's actually happening in life. So we have to sort of go through that to see how it connects. But at the end of the dream, although you kind of almost spoke up laughing, what was the feeling at the end that you had once the lion had peed on you? What was the feeling at the end of you had at the end of the dream?
I guess
In the dream?
yeah, just joy and relief and appreciation and
Yeah.
just almost like kind of like, isn't life like funny stroke amazing, that kind of feeling.
That's lovely. I was hoping you were going to say the word relief because that's what the lion did. It relieved itself on you
Of
at the end
course,
as well.
yes, yeah. Yeah.
So the way that obviously, if I'm working with a client, we take an hour to go into it, but we're just
Mm.
gonna cut to the chase, haha. Um, so so I would say that the unknown male in the dream would be, that you felt very close to, is a part of yourself, probably your yang, so I would go archetypal
Mm.
there, probably your yang, or I'd say to people, so this is maybe the part of yourself that relates to the outer world. It might be your work, it might be your business, it might be your left brain. It's that kind of side of yourself. And you obviously feel quite close to this self, but you're being chased by this wild boar. Now, I would be talking to the person to flesh out what it is, but some possibilities include this being an experience of having had a really boring conversation with someone or met an old bore, because sometimes we have these kind of puns in our dreams as well.
Mm.
Um,
That's interesting.
being bored, yes, but also a feeling of maybe you having been boring into some stuff, not being boring, but
Oh,
delving deep
yes,
into
delving
something.
in.
Yeah, because I tend to look
Mm.
at the
Can I just add
animals.
this? Because,
Yeah,
um, it's interesting it's a wild boar in particular, because I actually really like wild boars. I've got you have sort of like certain animals that you really
yes,
love. For some
yeah,
bizarre reason, wild boars are one of them for me. So I wonder whether that's relevant. It's not like
of
it's,
course,
a
yeah.
random animal that I never think about. I particularly like wild
Of
boars.
course, yeah, and, like, when I'm doing an hour with someone, I would have
Mm.
already
Yeah,
said to you,
sorry,
"Well,
I'm just
what
wanted
does
to
a
give
wild
you
boar
that
mean to you?"
context. Yeah,
So
cool.
what does a wild boar
Mm.
mean to you? You love it, but why?
I I think I don't know. They're quite pleasing. I feel like they're just like a pleasing design. The way they look just pleases me. I love the fact they are. We've domesticated the pig, and so they're kind of like of the pig, but retained their wildness. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, there's just I think they perhaps feel like they've got that kind of blend of, like looking at it from a Chinese astrology perspective. I feel like there's just something really. They've got the pig-like aspects of being, say, like charming and into pleasure and embodied, but with that kind of wild aspect too.
Yes. So that's a really lovely feeling, and I'll often look at animals and dreams as being, well, I look at everything and everyone in a dream as being an aspect of the dreamer.
Mm,
So I would tend to look at animals as being deeply unconscious parts of ourselves that we
mhm,
are just getting to know. Because once we get to know these parts of ourselves, they tend to appear as people in our dreams. But
mm,
before they take the shape of people, they take the shape more of an energy, more of an animal.
mm,
So it's interesting that, you are, you love a wild boar. You can basically see that you've described it in different words as a domestic creature that's actually not domestic, it's wild.
mm.
and,
Yes.
and, and could possibly bore into things as well. I don't know. And yet you think, so why were you running away from it? Why weren't you going, oh, look, it's this lovely boar. I'm just going to give it a hug.
Mm,
You were chased, you were running away. So I would say at that point, there was something in your dream where you were, um, running away from or not particularly facing or concerned about a wildness within you that might otherwise be domestic but really wants to be wild, but maybe not that wild. Maybe I've got to tone that down a bit. I'm not sure. I'm not
mm,
going to run away from that. And then you're feeling threatened by it as well. So I'm feeling threatened by this wilder side of myself, and it's actually a side of myself that's magnificent, and I love it. And is it boring? I don't know. Or does it bore into things? But I'm a bit threatened by it. And then all of a sudden, it's another energy joins it. So another more unconscious energy of yourself, which is a lion. So how would you describe what a lion means to you?
Wow, there's a lot there with lions. So what occurs to me in this moment is in childhood, I loved the books by C.S. Lewis, so Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I didn't know at the time consciously that the lion was meant to be Christ. I didn't know that when I was reading them. I didn't have a religious upbringing, but I think there was a subconscious sense of Aslan being this really beautiful, loving, divine energy. I knew that, and my friends and I, we almost like created this cult of Aslan. I had this beautiful little lion kind of statue that we created all these like rituals around.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
that's kind of my initial memory of how I used to relate to lions. And then I suppose in adulthood, I've retained some of that sense as well as the kind of sense of sovereignty and um, the different ways, like symbolically, they link to these notions of regality and sovereignty.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so lovely. So putting all that together, the energy that comes into your dream has some is spiritual, has a divine essence to it, and is also ritualistic because of all the rituals you did as a child with the little lion things. So it's like I am frightened and worried and feel threatened by this magnificent boar-like energy, this wildness that I've got, this wild domestic that I've probably got to keep under control of it. I'm not sure, but when I blend it, because there's the sex between the lion and the, when I blend it, when I integrate it with this more spiritual approach, with this more divine sense of being, with this sense of ritual, um, it's quite funny. and there's an ele- and there's an element of relief about this. And there's not only an element about relief with the weeing, but it's actually a really down to earth kind of relief. It grounds me. It feels good.
Mm.
So I would then say, those were the kind of energies that I would feel that your dream was processing, and that they were energies that you may not have been so aware of in the day or two before because they were animal shaped, they were more unconscious, but they're coming into consciousness